Have you ever walked past a stranger and felt a connection you couldn't explain? Something so strong it made the world stop spinning, if only for a heartbeat? What would you do if your own child recognized someone you never even knew existed? And in that instant, your entire past unraveled before your eyes? This is the story of a single moment, a scream, a question, and a secret that shattered one man's perfect world forever. James Ellington's life was built on schedules and silence. The silence of his penthouse apartment, where the only sounds were the click of crystal glasses and the muted hum of the city below. The silence of his heart, battered and left hollow after the loss of his wife, Caroline, to cancer. And the silence of a man who learned long ago that control was his only real defense against pain. Every Sunday, as part of his ritual to keep some semblance of normalcy for his daughter Ava, James would take her to Central Park. It was their place, where he tried to be more than the stern, absent CEO, and instead just daddy, the only world his daughter had left. Ava, all wild curls and boundless curiosity, seemed to find magic in everything. The ducks, the street musicians, the carousel that spun endlessly beneath a canopy of green. On this particular Sunday, summer sunlight filtered through the leaves, painting the paths in gold. James held Ava's small hand as they wandered, Ava skipping beside him, her pink dress catching every glimmer of light. For a moment he allowed himself to relax, to believe that life might just keep going, quietly and safely. But fate rarely respects our plans. They were walking near the fountain, one of Ava's favorite spots, when a little girl's voice cut through the air, sharper than any memory. "Daddy, that's my brother!" Ava shrieked, her finger pointing straight across the path. James froze, unsure if he heard her correctly. "What did you say, sweetheart?" Ava tugged insistently at his hand, her blue eyes wide with certainty. "Over there, that boy, that's my brother. He looks like me, and like you." James followed her gaze. There, sitting alone on the edge of the fountain, was a boy, no older than 5 or 6, hair a tangled mess, cheeks smudged with dirt, and clothes so worn they seemed to be holding together by hope alone. Clutched tightly in his arms was a battered cardboard box, as if it contained all the treasures in the world. But it wasn't his poverty that shook James. It was his eyes. Piercing, brilliant blue, identical to Ava's, identical to his own. He felt his stomach drop. "Ava, honey, you know you don't have a brother," he managed, voice trembling with forced calm. "It's just you and me." Ava shook her head, stubborn. "No, Daddy, I feel it. That's my brother." The boy stared back at them now, cautious but unafraid, his gaze unwavering. A silent challenge. Something inside James cracked, a fissure splitting through years of careful denial. Memories rushed in. A young intern named Nora Carter, gentle and brilliant, who'd worked at Ellington Holdings for a brief, unforgettable season 6 years ago. Blonde hair, laughter like bells. A mistake, a night never spoken of again. She was let go under mysterious circumstances after a paperwork mix-up, and James, swept up in board meetings and Caroline's illness, never looked back. Or so he told himself. But the past never truly disappears. Driven by instinct, or maybe guilt, James approached the boy, Ava still clutching his hand. He crouched down to meet the child's gaze. "Hi there. What's your name?" The boy shrank back, tightening his grip on the box. After a moment, he whispered, "Leo." James forced a smile. "That's a strong name, Leo. Is your mom nearby?" Leo looked away. "She's at home. She's sick. I just needed to find food. There's nothing left." James's heart clenched. Ava, undeterred by fear or social boundaries, plopped down beside Leo, digging into her small backpack and pulling out a granola bar. "You can have this. Daddy always packs extra in case I get hungry." Leo hesitated, then took it with shaking hands, eyes never leaving Ava's. As he unwrapped it and ate, slowly, carefully, savoring every bite, James felt the edges of his own world start to blur. As Ava began to chat away, telling Leo about her favorite ice cream and the time she rescued a bird, James slipped away, pulling out his phone and calling his longtime assistant. "Sarah, I need everything on a former intern, Nora Carter, worked in marketing 6 years ago. Find her, quietly." Sarah didn't hesitate. Yes, Mr. Ellington. James hung up, nerves humming. He glanced back at the two children. Ava was now showing Leo how to make a clover chain, her small fingers deft and patient. Leo watched, enraptured, like a boy who'd never been invited to play. For a few minutes, James watched them, a lump growing in his throat. Then gently he asked, Leo, do you want to come with us? Just to have a meal and maybe call your mom. Let her know you're safe. Leo looked at Ava, then back at James and slowly nodded. Ava cheered, grabbing his hand, already planning what games they would play. James led them back to the penthouse, his mind spinning. What if this boy really was his son? What if all these years of careful routine and quiet grief had hidden a secret he never meant to keep? As they stepped into the elevator, Leo shrank back, staring in awe at the marble floors and mirrored walls. Ava squeezed his hand. Don't worry, Daddy says it's just an apartment, but I think it's a castle. You can be the prince. James almost smiled. When they arrived, Ava whisked Leo away to see her room. Pink walls, stars stuck to the ceiling, stuffed animals lined up like a royal court. James watched from the doorway, struck by how easily children could build bridges adults could not. In the kitchen, he fixed sandwiches, the simple act grounding him. He brought the food to the living room, where Leo and Ava sat cross-legged on the carpet, trading stories. Leo was quieter, but Ava filled the silence with warmth. As Leo ate, James studied him, the shape of his jaw, the curve of his smile, the stubborn tilt of his chin, all familiar, hauntingly so. Do you have a dad, Leo? He asked softly. Leo shook his head. Mama said he left before I was born. James's hands shook as he poured milk into their glasses. That night, after tucking Ava into bed with promises that Leo would be safe, James sat in his study, hands trembling as he paged through old HR files. There she was, Nora Carter, a single photograph, young, tired, hopeful. Below, a termination notice, stamped and initialed by himself. A note, request for meeting, denied. He rubbed his face, fighting tears. What had he done? What had he missed? A soft knock came at the study door. Leo stood there, uncertain. Can I call my mom? She might be worried. James knelt and handed him his phone. Of course, Leo. Leo dialed a number from memory. James listened to the faint sound of a woman's voice. Worried, relieved, still strong after everything. I'm safe, Mama. A nice man and his daughter found me. They gave me food. James listened, guilt and hope warring inside him. When the call ended, Leo looked up. Mama says thank you. James put a hand on the boy's shoulder. You can stay here tonight if you want. I'll call your mom and arrange everything in the morning. Leo nodded, clutching the box tighter. For the first time, James noticed the name written in faded marker on the lid. Leo Carter. As James watched the boy settle into the guest room, he knew nothing would ever be the same. All the money, all the power, meant nothing compared to the truth now sitting on his living room floor. Two children, both his, one by blood and one by choice, in a secret that would either heal them all or tear them apart. He sat by the window staring out at the city lights, wondering how a single scream in the park could change a life built on silence. But sometimes it's the smallest voices that carry the greatest truths. Personal reflection. There's a peculiar cruelty in the way we convince ourselves the past will stay buried if we simply don't look. But the universe has a way of putting our greatest failures right in front of us, sometimes in the eyes of a child. If you've ever been blindsided by a moment of truth, you know it doesn't just shatter what you built. It gives you a rare and fragile chance to build something better. It's strange how a single night can seem to stretch into forever when your heart is full of questions that have no safe answers. That night, James Ellington wandered the halls of his penthouse like a ghost. He checked on Leo every half hour, the boy curled under the covers, arms wrapped around that battered cardboard box, so small in the vastness of a guest room, never meant for children. Across the hall, Ava slept deeply, a half smile on her lips, as if even her dreams were lighter now, with her brother close by. James tried to sleep, but every time he closed his eyes, faces swam up from the darkness. Caroline's smile, Nora's pleading gaze in that HR file, the silent accusation in Leo's blue eyes. He poured a drink he didn't want, stared out at the city, and wondered if a man could ever truly outrun the things he'd chosen to forget. By morning, he was resolved. He brewed coffee, made pancakes, Ava's favorite, and watched the two children eat side by side, Ava babbling, Leo silent but listening, his gaze softening just a little each time she nudged him to try syrup or laughed at her own jokes. There was something in the way Leo followed Ava's lead, a longing for belonging so raw it nearly broke James's heart. After breakfast, James sat Leo down. "I'd like to call your mom, talk to her. Would that be all right?" Leo hesitated, then nodded. James dialed the number from last night, nerves coiled tight in his gut. When Nora's voice answered, cautious and tired, James swallowed and said, "Ms. Carter, this is James Ellington. I have Leo. He's safe. Would you let me bring him home to you and maybe talk? Just talk?" There was a long silence, then, "You found him? Is he, all right?" "He's okay, I promise." A pause. "You can bring him home, but don't expect me to open my door for long." James packed a small bag for Leo. Ava insisted on adding a drawing and her favorite pencil. He bundled them both into his car and told the driver an address that made him wince. A run-down walk-up on the edge of Brooklyn, a far cry from the manicured world of the Upper East Side. The car ride was quiet. Leo stared out the window, hands twisting nervously in his lap. Ava reached across the seat, squeezed his hand, and whispered, "It's okay. Daddy always comes back." When they pulled up, James saw it, a building peeling with age, graffiti scrawled across cracked bricks, windows patched with tape. He helped the children out, feeling awkward, out of place. Leo led them up 3 flights of uneven stairs. At the top, a door opened, and there was Nora. She was thinner than he remembered, hair pulled back with a rubber band, eyes wary and red-rimmed from worry or exhaustion. But there was still strength in her shoulders, a quiet resolve he'd overlooked all those years ago. When she saw Leo, her face crumpled in relief. She dropped to her knees, arms outstretched. "Leo, baby! Oh, thank God!" Leo ran to her, clutching her tight. For a moment, the world shrank to just them. James hung back, feeling like an intruder at his own reckoning. Nora stood, her gaze sharpening when she met his eyes. "You! What are you doing here?" James's words tangled in his throat. "I needed to be sure Leo got home safe, and to talk about everything." Nora crossed her arms. "You've had 6 years to talk, James. Why now?" He didn't know how to answer. He looked at Leo, at Ava, who clung to his hand, watching Nora with big, searching eyes. He tried honesty. "I didn't know, Nora. About Leo. About what happened after—" Nora cut him off, voice trembling. "That's not true. I tried to tell you. I called. I emailed. You never answered." Shame burned hot and real. He remembered now, dimly. Voicemails ignored. Emails marked unread during the worst months of Caroline's illness. A wave of guilt threatened to drown him. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I was wrong. About so much." For a long moment, no one spoke. Leo pressed into his mother's side, wary. Ava chewed her lip, uncertain. James tried again. "Can we just sit? Talk? I need to understand. And maybe help if you'll let me." Nora hesitated, then, perhaps for Leo's sake, let them inside. The apartment was small, clean but threadbare. Leo's treasures lined a shelf: plastic army men, a couple of battered books, a broken toy truck carefully taped together. On the wall, a single faded photo. Nora, younger and happier, holding a newborn Leo. They sat at a wobbly kitchen table. Nora poured coffee into chipped mugs. She told him, flat, factual, the story of the years he'd missed. Getting fired, a mistake she'd never been allowed to explain. Finding out she was pregnant, trying to contact him, and being stonewalled by layers of bureaucracy and his own silence. Raising Leo alone on temp jobs, struggling through illnesses and landlords who barely fix the heat. James listened, every word a hammer to his pride. The urge to fix, to rescue, rose up, but Nora's pride was formidable. "I don't want your charity," she said, eyes burning. "I don't want your name, your money. I just want Leo to be safe, to be happy." James nodded, but the truth pressed in. "He is my son, isn't he?" Nora's jaw set. I did a test a few years back. It was just for me. But yes, he's yours. For a long time, James sat in silence, trying to understand how his own choices had led here, a world away from his penthouse, sitting at a scratch table with the son he'd never known. Ava broke the tension. Can Leo come over again, Mommy? He's really nice, and I want to show him my secret star stickers. Nora looked at her, then at James. Something in her face softened. If Leo wants to. Leo nodded shyly. James cleared his throat. Look, I want to help, not just with money. I want to be there. For Leo, for both of you. If you let me. Nora said nothing, but her eyes were wet. James rose, reached into his coat, and set a sealed envelope on the table. For rent, medicine, whatever you need. No strings, just let me start making it right. Nora stared at the envelope for a long time, then slid it toward her. She didn't thank him. She didn't need to. When James left, he hugged Leo. Awkward, uncertain. You can call me anytime, okay? I'd like to see you again. Leo nodded. Ava squeezed his hand, promising to visit soon. Back in the car, James felt something shift. A loosening, a possibility that maybe, just maybe, the past could be rewritten. He called Sarah. Do whatever it takes. Find Nora a stable job, quietly, and set up an account for Leo. College, healthcare, all of it. No names, no headlines. Sarah only said, yes, sir. That night, James stood on his balcony, looking at the city with new eyes. He realized that love, real love, wasn't something you could schedule or manage or bury under meetings. It was something you had to fight for, even when you'd already lost so much. He called Nora. Can I come by tomorrow? Maybe take Leo and Ava out? Maybe you too? Nora was silent a long time, then said quietly, all right, but don't promise what you can't keep, James. James hung up, a strange hope blooming in his chest. The next day he returned, this time with fresh groceries, a backpack of new clothes, and tickets to the planetarium, Ava's idea. They spent the afternoon together, awkward at first, but as the children chased each other through the exhibits, something melted between the adults too. Nora laughed, a small, reluctant sound. Leo clung to Ava, smiling more than James had seen yet. As evening fell, James looked at Nora across the subway platform, both children holding hands between them. I know I have a lot to prove, he said quietly, but I won't disappear again. Whatever you need, whatever Leo needs, I'll be there. Nora nodded, uncertainty still in her eyes, but hope too. We'll see. And for the first time in years, James let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, the future could be better than the past. It's easy to judge people by what you think you know about them. But when the past catches up, when the walls come down, you see just how many stories go untold, how many wounds are hidden behind pride, how much forgiveness is waiting to be earned, not asked for. Watching James face the consequences of silence and Nora's quiet strength, I realized, sometimes redemption doesn't come from grand gestures, but from sitting in someone's kitchen, listening to the life you almost missed. There's something about second chances that always comes wrapped in thorns. They hurt when you reach for them, but the pain is proof you're still alive, that you still care. For James Ellington, that lesson came every morning as he texted Nora, checked on Leo, or simply watched Ava and Leo play together as if the world had never been broken at all. Weeks passed. The city shifted seasons. Gray clouds gave way to daffodils along the park paths, and James found himself choosing old sneakers over dress shoes for the first time in years. He spent weekends in Brooklyn's playgrounds, laughing as Leo taught Ava to skip stones, learning what it meant to be a real father, not just a man with money. Each visit, Nora stood a little closer, her anger cooling, her eyes softer, though always guarded, always watching to see if James would vanish again. At first, the world outside tried to shake their fragile new beginnings. News broke. Billionaire's secret son discovered in Brooklyn. Paparazzi camped outside Nora's apartment, snapped photos of Leo in borrowed jeans, shouted questions James refused to answer. He shielded the children, ignored the headlines, stood beside Nora on the cracked sidewalk when the noise grew too much. Let them talk, he said quietly. They can't change who we are. Nora, lips thin but fierce, nodded. They never could. But inside their small world, something miraculous was happening. Leo began to laugh more, sleep better, his old nightmares fading. He let Ava braid his hair, taught James how to patch holes in toy trucks, made Nora promise to bake cookies, like the ones in Daddy's big kitchen. Sometimes, when the city was quiet and the children's laughter echoed off brick walls, Nora would glance at James and see, just for a heartbeat, the man she had once almost loved. One rainy Saturday, James invited them all, Nora, Leo, even Nora's neighbor, Mrs. Lynn, who sometimes babysat, up to the penthouse. For one day, he promised. No press, no drama, just us. Leo hesitated, his hand tight in Nora's, but curiosity won out. When they stepped inside, Leo's eyes grew wide. Ava squealed, and Nora's breath caught at the sight of a world so far removed from their own. But it was Ava who made the moment real. She grabbed Leo's hand, dragged him straight to her room, and declared, "This is our castle, and you're my knight." Leo, grinning, dropped his battered box on the floor and let Ava place a plastic crown on his head. Nora and James watched from the hallway, two parents, once strangers, now bound by something stronger than regret. Hope. Dinner was chaos. Nora burned the garlic bread, Mrs. Lin told stories about her garden in Taiwan. James let Leo and Ava dump half a bottle of sprinkles on the ice cream. Afterward, Leo curled on the sofa, head on Nora's lap, Ava draped across James's shoulder, and for a moment the room was filled with a peace so gentle, so unguarded, it felt sacred. But happiness, when it finally comes, can be terrifying. It reminds you of everything you almost lost. That night, as Nora gathered her coat, she hesitated at the door. "James," she said softly, "I can't promise forgiveness. Not yet, but thank you for not giving up." James shook his head. "I should have been here from the start. I don't deserve your trust, but I'll keep trying to earn it. Every day." Nora studied him a long moment. Maybe that's all anyone can do. Spring deepened. Nora found steady work, thanks to a discreet tip from James's old assistant, though Nora pretended not to notice. Leo started a new school, Ava stuck to him like glue, and the teachers marveled at how quickly the shy boy with the haunted eyes bloomed with his sister by his side. On weekends, all four walked through Central Park, eating hot pretzels, feeding ducks, building memories to bury the old wounds. But the past is never finished with us. One evening, as Leo played in the living room and Ava built a pillow fort, a knock sounded at Nora's door. A woman in a sharp suit and tight smile introduced herself as Ms. Hammond from the city's child welfare department. "Routine inquiry," she said, but her eyes lingered on the peeling paint, the threadbare carpet, the lack of a second bed. James, there by luck, saw it happen. The way Nora's hands trembled, how Leo pressed himself into her side, silent and small. Ms. Hammond's questions were sharp. Did Leo have health insurance? Was there a custody arrangement? Where did the money for the groceries come from? James stood to answer, but Nora shook her head, pride like steel. "I'm his mother," she said, voice steady. "I do what I can." Ms. Hammond took notes, left a card, and promised to follow up. That night, Nora wept for the first time in front of James. "What if they take him?" she whispered. "What if everything we've built just disappears?" James knelt before her, took her hands in his. "They won't. I'll fight for you, for Leo, for both of you, I swear it." Nora wanted to believe, but old wounds bled distrust. The next day, James called every lawyer he trusted. He moved quietly, had Nora and Leo listed on his private health plan, filed papers to recognize paternity, and wrote a letter for the caseworker, explaining everything with a frankness that cost him pride, but bought them time. Days later, Ms. Hammond returned, this time not alone. But she was met with paperwork, school letters, proof of care, and the sight of two children laughing over pancakes, arms flour-dusted, faces bright. She asked her questions, wrote her notes, and finally smiled, genuine, relieved. "They're lucky kids," she said. "And you're a family, however you got here." Nora cried again that night, but not from fear. This time when James hugged her, she did not pull away. Time moved on. Leo called James dad for the first time, by accident, in the middle of a soccer game, when he scored a goal and ran straight into James's arms. The word hung in the air, fragile and new, and James, stunned, hugged him tight. "I'm proud of you, son," he whispered, tears in his eyes. But the greatest moment came one golden evening in early summer. The family, Nora, James, Leo, Ava, sat on a picnic blanket in the park. Ava, ever the instigator, announced, "I have a wish. I want us all to live together, like a real family. Mommy, Daddy, Leo, me. Please?" Nora and James looked at each other, the weight of the years between them rising and falling in a single breath. "It's not that simple," Nora started. But Leo, quiet, watchful Leo, spoke for the first time without fear. "I want that too. I never thought I'd get to ask." James reached for Nora's hand. "I can't change what happened, but I can be here, now. We can build something, if you want to try." Silence. Then slow as spring rain, Nora nodded. "Let's try, one step at a time." That night, as the city glowed in dusk's purple hush, the four of them walked home together. No longer broken pieces, but something whole. They made a family dinner, danced in the kitchen, and when the kids finally slept, James and Nora sat on the balcony, side by side, not speaking, not needing to. The next morning, Leo woke to find a note on his battered box. In James's careful scrawl, it read, "Home isn't just a place. It's the people who never give up on you. Welcome home, son," Leo cried, and when he hugged James, it was fierce and sure. Ava cheered. Nora wiped tears away, this time with laughter in her eyes. Their story didn't end with a wedding or a newspaper headline. It ended and began again, with forgiveness, with courage, and with the quiet, stubborn hope that the worst days can sometimes lead to the very best. And as the sun rose, James knew, not every second chance gets written in gold. Some are scratched into the scars of the past, stubborn and bright. Proof that love, real, messy, relentless love, always finds a way home. It's easy to judge from the outside, to believe happy endings only happen for the lucky few. But what this family found wasn't luck. It was the courage to keep showing up, to ask for forgiveness, to say, "I love you," even when you're not sure it will be returned. And that, more than money or status, is what makes a life worth living. So if you're still here, ask yourself, who do you need to forgive? What second chance are you brave enough to claim? Drop a comment below. Share your story. Because sometimes sharing the hardest truths is the first step to happiness you never saw coming. If this story moved you, even a little, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. There are more stories waiting, and maybe the next one will help you find your own way home. Until then, be kind, be brave, and never let anyone tell you it's too late to start over.